Hello everyone and welcome to this video, which is in our great Engine Middlegames series. I'm Grandmaster Matthew Sadler and we are taking a look at some more games from the Torch-Leela CCCC 21 Blitz Challenger match. Torch is white in this position and Leela is black. So it's actually been a Queen's Gambit accepted. That's when after d5, c4, black plays d takes c4, bishop c4. White hasn't played d4 yet, which is slightly unusual, but it transposes back into some sort of normal Queen's Gambit accepted. Normally black plays a little bit more aggressively with a6, b5, just to get that bishop on c8 active, but well, the book was a slightly more passive line. And what we end up with is some sort of symmetrical position here. 2 pawns versus 2 pawns on the queen side, 4 against 4 on the king side, but where white's pieces are just a little bit freer. This bishop on b2 is pointing towards the black king, whereas this bishop is not fantastic. I mean, it retreats back to e8, which helps protect the king and also supports the knight on c6, so it's not terrible or anything. You can get that bishop out of the way, and not blocking in black's major pieces. But black's just a little bit more passive, and white seems to have a couple of extra tempi somehow, and well, it's white's turn to get things started. And one very typical way for white to get things started is to exchange off the knight on f6. Obviously white's got these 2 lovely bishops on b2 and d3 pointing towards the black king, so exchanging off this knight on f6 just opens up the diagonal and also takes away a key defensive point piece away from black. So there's many ways to do it. I mean, knight e4 is quite a common way, and it's also reasonably dangerous. Takes on e4 and then queen b6 was what my engines wanted, and then they're going to try and get the rook on there and maybe start exchanging rooks. But there's a couple of moves which are quite interesting. There's the one that I would most probably play, which is knight g5, just teeing up something like knight c4. Torch actually did it in a slightly unusual way here, played the move knight d2. Just aiming, well, I suppose either for knight d4 or knight ce4. Not 100% sure why rather knight d2 than knight g5, to be honest. I mean, it gives some extra possibilities. You could come round to c4 or maybe b3 to c5, play it more positionally as well. But yeah, knight g5 looks like an incredibly natural move. So this was quite, just one of those things that just made me, notice that Torch had done this. Leela played rook ac8, just getting the rook developed, and it just means that the queen can drop back if ever there's a pin, and then maybe this knight can start moving away and looking at the bishop on d3. And then knight ce4 from Torch. Takes. And now Leela took quite a responsible decision, as the Russians always say. I mean, queen h5 is coming in, maybe even queen g4. We've got stuff like f4, rook f3 over coming in. These sort of attacks can go very quickly all of a sudden. So Leela plays the move e5, trying to block out this this bishop on b2. But the tactics actually that Leela comes up with to make this defensive idea work are pretty exceptional, I have to say. I was kind of, it's one of those things, because e5 is not a move that you normally want to play in the Queen's Gambit accepted, because although you do block out this bishop on b2, that pawn on e5 is a target. You often like to use the e5 square for the knight, and of course playing e5 weakens the light squares around this pawn, so a bishop coming to the a2 g8 diagonal can actually be quite awkward. So e5 is not really a move that I would I'd be very happy playing with black, and I was sort of looking at it, but the tactics that Leela comes up with are pretty good, really. So Torch played the very natural attacking move f4. I also had some engine games where white played bishop c4. Was that one particular engine doing that? I think that was Stockfish playing bishop c4 a lot here. just highlighting the weakness of f7. And after bishop f5, knight g3, bishop g6, black basically tries to get this bishop away from here just to open up the line of the rook on d8. Then Stockfish was playing f4. It got very, very sharp. Actually, there are some games here that the first I had multiple games where the first 43 moves were identical, which is always a little bit shocking. When you look at the moves, and you say, "Well, I'm not sure. I'm not sure how many of those moves I would have played myself." But takes bishop d3, getting the bishop out of the way of the unrushing f5 and also forking. Queen g4, bishop f8, f5. To black's just threatening bishop f7, bishop g7 rather, and then f6. So, for example, if you go bishop f1, I can go bishop g7, takes f6, and I think that's going to be mate. So queen d6 played, just bring the queen over for a bit of defense, and also making sure that the bishop can drop back to g6 if ever white plays f6. Rook e1, knight e7, takes, h4, queen d7, bishop b3, and moves like bishop b3 show that white hasn't got anything totally decisive yet. But it's clear that white's putting all the pressure in, really. I mean, there's all sorts of ideas like that. Knight h5 as well. We could even pin the bishop on d3 with rook d1. I think that Stockfish was winning a fair number of these against Dragon, but yeah, bishop c4 makes sense. You play e6 to e5. You block out the bishop on b2, so you activate your bishop, your other bishop, on the diagonal that's just been opened. I mean, moves like that, actually in human chess, can have quite a big psychological effect. It's just showing the opponent, I've seen what's wrong with the move you've made, and that can often, a sort of a quiet move just occupying a newly opened diagonal, that can often have quite a big psychological effect in a human game. Torch's f4 is very aggressive, but I think most likely the move that I would play as well. And now Leela played something quite amazing, actually. I mean, this is real high-class engine defense, because f4. We're obviously might be looking to play f takes c5, but there's also this threat of bishop takes c5, simply because the knight on c6 is pinned to the queen. So we've got a couple of threats there, and actually Leela ignores both of them and plays this move bishop e6. And I was really a little bit shocked by this move, I have to say. It's quite a move. The point is, if you go bishop takes c5 in this position, then black's got this lovely little idea, queen d7, and you're hitting this this bishop on d3. So the bishop has to move, and then you can take off like this, and then you can take off rooks and go queen d5, and just by magic, black's managed to completely destroy any illusions that white might have about attacking. We've one bishop has disappeared. We've got a double pawn here. Rooks have been exchanged. There's nothing wrong with black's position at all here. So that this bishop e5, queen d7, really lovely. Don't know whether I would. If I spotted that in a game, I'd feel I was really playing well. Those sort of little tactics, they just make the defense, possible somehow. F5 was also quite interesting, and now the engines wanted to go bishop d5, and I think that the idea was after f6 just to take on e4 here. So if bishop e4, bishop f6, we can do sacks and all that, but they're not really going to work. The king's managed to get an escape square through f8 to e7, and if you go f takes e7, which you'd love to do, then rook d3. I think this was the idea. And the games were continuing like this, but then engine sacrificing the exchange like this, crazy, and again surviving. White's pieces a little bit awkward, knight c5, bishop b7. Black's attacking the c3 pawn, got the two bishops. It's decent compensation for the exchange. And then f takes e5, which, to be honest, looks pretty dangerous. I mean, we're getting outposts on d6 and obviously in particular f6, and you can't take back on e5 because of queen c7. And obviously queen d7 has no effect. I mean, you attack the bishop on d3, but you're not threatening to take on e5 at all. So probably just something, yeah, I don't know, rook fd1 maybe, or something like that. It's just really just winning completely. But Leela played queen b8, which was, to be honest, just as shocking, because it's clear that storm clouds are gathering over here, and Leela's sort of moving the queen away to the queen side. But again, this is something where impossible to have any sort of judgment on this. It's simply that this position for black is pretty difficult. There's a real seeds of a very quick disaster happening with f4, with queen coming to h5. So at that point, it's all about good defense is all about precision, and that often means that you have to look to get away with much more than you'd normally be feeling comfortable, about. And that's what Leela is doing, just in a way, tempting white to go for big sacrifices, maybe before white's got absolutely everything in place to attack. So Torch did not hesitate and went all in, really. I mean, knight takes c5 is a threat, so got to do something about that. Dragon and Stockfish were actually tending to go for the slightly quieter knight c5 and just go for this, but I don't know. I mean, it doesn't really grab me very much, I have to say. This pawn, okay, white's got the two bishops and an extra pawn, but this pawn e5 blocks the bishop on b2. You've got this nice solid light square blockade. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I wouldn't feel here that as white that I've got a massive advantage. Slight to clear maybe, but I think quite tough, especially in a human game, to make very much of this. This is very, very fortressy for a human game, I think. What Torch did absolutely gets the Sadler seal of approval. Knight f6, just trying to make use of all the attacking options at white's disposal. So g takes f6, e takes f6. Obviously, in these sort of positions, you're looking, could I do this? It's a very typical tactic. Queen h5, king g8, e takes f6, and just trying to get some sort of attack with the rooks coming in, maybe to f3 and to g3. That looks pretty good, but black's got a rather annoying resource, which is to go rook d5 here. So that you managed to chase away the queen, and then bishop d6. And actually, it's quite tough for white to get the rook involved somehow. All of these things are covered. It's not totally trivial, but it is very good for black, and black was winning all of my games from here. So this move bishop h7, very typical, but not good. So e takes f6, bishop f8, and now an interesting moment, because actually black is fairly well organized here in terms of defense. White's got two pawns for the piece, but it's not so easy for white to bring a rook into play, which white really needs, in order to do anything. And the fact that you've got rook takes d3 all the time as a way of killing a very good attacking white piece, and that you then have the two bishops and whatever, just means that that black's not particularly not in huge danger yet. But this next move from Torch was really nice. Bishop e4. So just getting out of the way of a potential rook takes d3, and just preparing to move in slowly to the position. Maybe something like queen h5, attacking h7. Obviously, you couldn't go queen h5 before because of rook takes d3. So maybe I was sort of thinking that that white's idea was maybe to play something like queen h5, and then after h6, play a move like rook c5. If you take on c5, I take on h6, and otherwise this rook's coming over to g5. That looked like a pretty good way of playing. So Leela takes emergency action here and plays the move rook d5. Again, this move rook here just to cover. And well, if the rook gets to g5 and maybe g6, who knows? Then I mean, this is not. White's going to find it hard to put the position away. I mean, always. If you get the exchange back, then you've got rook and two pawns for two bishops, and an exposed black king. So it's always very unclear, but still, it's that would definitely be an improvement for black. So what Torch did, Torch kept the attack going with a dynamic possibility I hadn't spotted at all, of course. came as a bit of a shock. King h8, and now, well, you can stop the video here maybe. That might be an interesting one. See whether you can spot it. It's a very hard move to spot, I have to say. The move is bishop e5. So, very nice idea. The point is that knight e5 allows queen c8, or rook c8. Queen takes e5 allows queen takes c8. Yeah, I mean, I was actually thinking, two sort of 3 pieces for the 2 rooks and some weak pawns and all that. You know, how bad is that really? But yeah, the engine thought it was pretty bad for black. The fact that the king is really tied down to the back rank just makes it a little bit awkward. It's not obvious. So, for example, this was dragon against stockfish, queen g3. Queen b2, rook d1, h6, h3, king h7, rook c5, just exploiting the fact that that this guy allows queen g7 check, and then well, here stockfish could only give up material like this basically. So yeah, you know, looked fairly simple, but it didn't feel intuitively simple to me. But Leela plays a much better move, which is this lovely idea, bishop e6, and well, now white's got to play this idea because obviously the bishop's attacked by knight and bishop, and well, if the queen just moves away, you can take it because the rook on c8 is defended. But this was what Torch had seen. Queen takes c6, fe6, bishop b8, and rook b8. And you know, my first impression really of this position was that this was going to be an easy win for white. I mean, you've got 2 pawns for knight and bishop. 2 pawns and a rook rather for knight and bishop, so not 2 bishops either, and pass pawn on f6. Black king not great at the moment. Got to watch out that it doesn't sort of develop itself nicely with sort of you know, king g8 to f7. But yeah, you know, you've also got some open files as well. You know, you've got the g file here, you've got the d file. So I sort of assumed that this would be quite good, but actually what Leela demonstrates is that Leela's able to soften up the white dark squares and then just entrench its pieces on those dark squares, and at the same time attack the white, you know, the white pawns. It's not a flowing pawn chain for white, of course. You know, there are definite targets if you can only get at them, and that's what Leela manages to do, and actually makes it look like a really easy draw. Which is, you know, quite shocking to me, I have to say. But well, have a look how it went. So rook c4 and now a5. So Leela trying to open up this diagonal and well, get some counterplay right. I mean, if you can just win one of those pawns and then start running an a pawn down, for example, that would be really good. So Torch wants to keep some pawns, but now this very clever idea, just knight d7 here. And what is black doing? Well, the e6 pawn is hanging, but we've also got bishop takes a3, and once you take that pawn, then you know, then this guy will be a runner simply. So Torch played a4, and now e5 from Leela. And the idea is, well, you know, we're also looking for stuff like just simply knight c5, just to attack this pawn on a4. So h4 played, h6, f7, getting that pawn defended and also stopping the black king from getting over. And then rook c8. And my engines were just playing this pretty much all without any deviation. A little bit of deviation here, but although, you know, the ideas are very, very similar. So h5 played by Torch. Again, you're trying to keep this king in a box. King h7, king h1, bishop c5 and rook c4, and king g7. And you know, essentially it just kind of looks, you know, like here that the black's really solid on the dark squares, and somehow white doesn't have any easy way just to try and push through. And the only thing that you've got, really, you know, the things that are the most easy to attack are white targets, white pawns, rather than black targets. So we got check, a little bit of a repetition, rook f3, rook f8 now. So black just looking to win this advanced pawn. We give a check, g3, and now this move bishop b6, and black's got a couple of ideas here. This bishop can come d8 to g5 just to block the g file so that the king can get close to f7, and you're also freeing this square for the knight to attack the a4 pawn. So Leela, within quite a constricted space, is moving its pieces around very nicely here, and well, I think you see the evaluation starting to go down here as it just becomes harder and harder to move it. And the game remains sharp, Ed. So I'm not saying that I'd particularly be confident about holding this with black in a blitz finish, but I think I could also imagine losing it with white in a blitz finish as well. It's one of those positions. I mean, there's all sorts of little points that you don't quite realise until you play through the game. For example, this move bishop b6 allows black to play bishop e3 to cover the h6 pawn. Little things like this. But somehow, black just has enough here to be able to hold. Keeps on attacking the black pieces, and somehow, all the pieces managed to escape. And what Leela managed to do here was head off into an ending where, it managed to clear away all of the white pawns and then just leave white with an extra pawn. But these three are split. They're not gonna break through. You're going to be able to blockade somehow this e pawn, and also, I don't know, stick something on g5 and and stop this pawn from moving forwards. The game continued another 40 moves, but they weren't particularly interesting. Leela just held this very comfortably. So that was a very interesting game, I found. Thought that was really a lot of very interesting tactical points. Was interested by knight d2. That was quite an unusual move. But I thought Leela's defence was extraordinary here. This e5 full of these little tactical points. Not deep or anything, but to spot them is pretty difficult. And I definitely know those are the sort of things. When I found them, I always knew, ooh, I'm in good form. I'm sharp. I'm imaginative. And but the way that Leela defended, moving the queen away from the king side, I mean, I'd really just intuitively, you're really thinking this can't work somehow. But this move from Torch was very nice, bishop e4, and this tactic bishop e5, but Leela's whole defense, in this position, this kind of fortressy stuff where you just understand that you can soften white up on the dark squares and then move all your pieces around those. Very hard to spot, and very, very good defense indeed. So there we are. Hope you enjoyed that. I've got quite a few more videos planned in the works. Just got to record them, but hopefully keep on going with those. Of this very interesting match, Torch against Leela. If you like the video, why not give a like, subscribe to the channel, tell your friends, and also take a look at my new books, Silicon Road to Chess Improvement and Reengineering the Chess Classics, which is full of analysis like this. Only I guess the stuff like, for example, Silicon Road, it's kind of beautifully organised and structured so that you really draw all the lessons from all the games that you watch. That's the difference with this channel. But otherwise, thanks very much for watching, and remember, it's Forward Chess. I'm author of the month for August, so if you fancy a digital version, then you can get it, and hope to see you at the next videos. Thanks for watching.